in the last few weeks, as Rose had grown stronger and emerged from her selfish infirmity, had she realized how much Lottie had done for her. She'd tried, then, feebly, to make up for her poor behaviour, aware that her own father hadn't had the patience to care for her as this woman had. "What time is this visit to take place, Cara?" Lottie asked now. 2:00. "And are you sure you wish to go?" Lottie's expressive dark eyes clouded with concern. "I'm sure your father would understand if you told him it was too soon." "I don't mind," Rose said. The truth was that Papa was bubbling over with enthusiasm to make this visit, and though he might agree to postpone it today, he'd only keep on and on about going until she agreed. It was easier to do it now. There was no point putting off the inevitable. It wasn't as though she was going to start looking beautiful any time soon. Lottie smiled. "It's true what he says about you, you know." "What does who say?" "Your papa. He says you're an adventurous little thing when you're not laid low." Rose smiled, even though Lottie was wrong. This was nothing to do with being adventurous. She couldn't remember what that felt like anymore. This was about getting something unavoidable over with. When Rose descended the stairs half an hour later, her father was waiting at the bottom, watching her with an indulgent expression he occasionally wore when he looked at her. It was an expression that made her realize he did love her, in his way, though most of the time he didn't much notice her. She pasted on a wavery smile for him. Lottie had done her best. Rose knew she looked neat and presentable, though she felt like a child. She was just 5 feet tall and thin as a rake. Her height hadn't troubled her when she was plumper, but now that she was so thin, she knew she looked very, very young. It was even worse without her clothes. She hated her jutting hip bones and her non-existent breasts. Hated that she could see her ribs. She tried to eat the food that Lottie pressed on her. Rich roast meats, creamy potatoes, toothsome puddings swimming in custard. But although her appetite had improved, it was still tiny. Worse than that, though, worse than anything, was her face. Gaunt and drawn, and those marks. The worst one was the scab on her left eyelid that still hadn't gone, and that made her eye look droopy. She tried to cover it with powder, but that had only made it look worse. When she stared at herself in the mirror, she felt an awful, yawning hollowness in her stomach. She supposed the feeling was horror. She wished she didn't have to meet Viscount Waite looking like this. He couldn't possibly find her the least bit attractive.
"Rosebud,"
Papa said as she descended the last step.
"You look lovely, my dear."
His eyes shone with sincerity, and she realized he believed it. He must be blind, but then perhaps all papas were.
"Ready?"
he asked. She smiled and nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The whole situation was so bizarre that she was having difficulty believing it was really happening. A week ago, she'd had no thoughts of anything but trying to get better. Now she was to meet, for the first time, the man who might turn out to be her husband. She hadn't been out much since her illness, and it felt strange. She lifted the hem of her new gown carefully as she descended the steps from the front door to the street below. She leaned on her father in a way she never used to.